The sequel nobody wanted.
Wow, I guess time really does make fools of us all. The first Joker movie was one of those rare moments of cinematic serendipity
Yeah, it was really
where
good.
everything that should have been wrong somehow came together to become absolutely right. A low-budget origin story about a Batman villain that nobody asked for, directed by a guy best known for making comedies that proved the law of diminishing returns, and
To be fair, the first Hangover movie was fucking amazing.
shadowed by media accusations of promoting violence, misogyny, and generalized buffoonery. It was a film that seemingly had everything going against it, but somehow turned out way better than it had any right to be. In a sea of
I feel like the reason why it was really good is because Joaquin Phoenix is a really good actor. I actually think it's like, it really, like, if you put, I would say 99 out of 100 other actors in that role, I don't think that the movie would have been very good. It was only good because of him.
saturated CGI sludge, the Joker dared to tell a small, intimate, complex story of a man pushed into madness and despair by a society that was blindly indifferent to him. A movie with a wonderfully unreliable narrator, driven by a superb performance by Joaquin Phoenix, and an ending that left the audience with more questions than answers.
Yeah, exactly, it was
a perfect one-and-done movie that told its story and told it well. No need to do anything more with a character like that, because it would just cheapen the experience.
Which is exactly what they did.
So, like the rest of you, I was a bit perplexed when I found out that Joker was getting a sequel, and even
I feel like everybody was confused about that. Like, I didn't understand that at all. Why would you have the like what? Like because I felt like the first movie at the end of it was over. Yeah, like what the fuck? Because the money it made. Yeah, they spent like 3 times as much money on the second one. I heard.
Concerned when it was announced as a musical co-starring Lady Gaga.
Fuck.
But just like everyone else, I tried to suppress my doubts and ignore that nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach that this movie was fundamentally a bad idea.
Well, the moment that I could tell that it was a bad idea is the moment that I heard about it. Nobody asked for this. Nobody wanted this. Like, I mean, really, like, I mean, what is this? It came out? Yeah, it did. It got released. It's a musical. Like, look, I've never watched a musical in my fucking life, all right?
Surely to goodness, Todd Phillips knows what he's doing and wouldn't just shout out some lame cash grab sequel that undermines the integrity of the original, right?
Wrong.
Then I sat down and watched it. And if all 2.5 hours of Joker Folie à Deux proves anything at all, it's that sometimes you really ought to listen to your instincts. Yeah, there's definitely good elements in there. You can see that talented people were working on this movie, and the ending is definitely going to get people talking. But overall, Joker 2 felt like a dull, bloated, and ultimately unnecessary movie that failed to answer the question that's dogged it since the beginning. Why does this film even exist? Now, I know it's just come out, and I don't want to spoil it for people, so I'm going to keep my plot summary short and sweet, unlike this fucking movie. So with that in mind, let's go. The story
It's just so weird, man. The end was the best. Yeah, a 2-hour musical. The first review is the producers was pleased that it made $1 billion. That's what I think what happened, right? Warner Brothers thought the Joker wouldn't make money, so they only took 20%, and then they pushed for a sequel. It's just like, I'm just shocked that this even happened.
Picks up shortly after the events of the first film, where Arthur Fleck has been arrested and locked up in Arkham Asylum while he awaits trial for all the murders that he committed. His lawyer wants to plead insanity, while the prosecutor Harvey Dent's pushing for the death penalty. Bad times indeed. But while he's at Arkham, he meets a young woman named Lee Quinn and soon starts a bit of a romance with her. But is it really Arthur that she's into, or his Joker personality? And what's her true motivation for being there? Well, you'll have to wait and find out. Anyway, the case goes to trial, and Arthur's soon confronted by the reality of what he did in the first film by going over most of the key events again. But how responsible was he for what happened? Was the Joker really a split personality that took over him, or just part of him all along? And what will Harley Quinn think of him when she finds out the truth? Joker 2 is kind of a frustrating movie to watch because in a lot of ways I can see how hard many of the people involved are trying to make it work. Joaquin Phoenix delivers the same intense, compelling performance as the first movie, arguably a bit too similar, but we'll get into that one in a minute. The point is though, he's definitely given the role his all and some of his scenes are genuinely compelling. Lady Gaga, much to my surprise, also turns in a good performance as a crazy superfan enamored by...
I think it would have been better it was Margot Robbie, but okay, that's fine. Like, I feel like it would be so much better if we could get away from this idea. And I think this is why so many of these movie studios do this, is that they want to capitalize on like an established IP, because if they don't, nobody will watch it. And that's the problem.
The flamboyant persona of the Joker rather than the flesh and blood man behind it. And if you're inclined to look for themes in this film, it's an interesting insight into the intoxicating danger of celebrity and the vast gulf between myth and reality. The two actors play well off each other, and the kind of twisted romance they cultivate seems pretty appropriate for a movie like this, and the film even has you questioning which of their interactions even happened for real. It doesn't do it as effectively as the first movie, but it's something at least. The thing is, I'm pretty sure that the comic version of Quinn was more like the Joker's plaything rather than a manipulative femme fatale stringing him along, but again, it probably fits with what we know about this version of Joker. Yeah. And I guess that brings me along to my criticisms, the biggest of which is the deconstruction of Arthur himself. The ending of the first movie saw him fully embrace his Joker persona, shedding the last remnants of his old, weak, victimized personality and embracing the madness of the world around him.
That's right.
It was a logical endpoint for a man who had been desperately trying
that's what was so badass. I love that. I thought it was so good. Yeah, like, I was victim traditionally. Yeah, I don't remember exactly. But that's so cool.
Swim against the tide for most of the film,
no-no
and
zone.
it was kind of cathartic to see him finally let go. It was a final fuck you to the world that had kicked him to the ground again and again.
Exactly.
A world reduced to fire and chaos. All of that good work seems to have been undone here, because for most of the film, he's reverted to the same weak, timid Arthur that he was at the start of the first movie. And I can't shake the feeling that there's something almost mean-spirited in that kind of deconstruction, as if they're taking a swipe at the audience themselves for liking someone they weren't supposed to. I don't know, man. It just feels like...
I do think that there's a lot of cases where, like, writers, especially Western writers, don't want to write compelling or interesting villains, because in doing so, they could attract the wrong audience to think that the villain was right. I do feel like that happens. No, I'm not saying that, like, that always happens, but I think it sometimes does happen. The Joker is the villain. Not supposed to be idealized. Bad idea. The thing is that I think that what makes the Joker story interesting is that a lot of people that have watched the Joker that really liked it have felt to some degree the same way. I think that's why the first movie was so compelling and so many people liked it. It's because people could identify with it and relate to it. Whereas, it's an anti-hero, right? Thanos. Yeah, Thanos is a good example, right? And, somewhat relatable. Exactly. Anti-heroes are so fun to watch. Exactly. And so I think that if you take a character and then, like, you make this character relatable, and I think it was relatable in a way that people didn't really want it to be. And I do think that there definitely was, like, that crowd of people that are not... They're not the ones that you're supposed to like, you can say. That really thought the Joker was a great movie. Yeah, I think that was a factor for sure. Yeah, it was unexpectedly relatable. Exactly. But people need movies to escape. The main villain and hero should be relatable. Well, here's the problem with here's what I'm saying. I'm saying the Joker was relatable. But he was relatable to a subset of people in like our culture that I think I don't know really what to say about this, like, that writers don't want them to have somebody to relate to. They had extra security for the first movie because of the content in it. I don't remember that. The point is, Joker has zero redeeming qualities, zero zilch. We shouldn't be relating to him. He's literally one of the worst bags of crap in all the comics, even if I do love him. I think that, so this is my best, like, way to say it, is that I think that people relate to him in, like, a vicarious way, where it's, like, finally, like, there's, like, a catharsis at the end of the movie, where it's, like, finally, this is, like, expressing the way that I feel. And I think that's why it was really good. It's not that people wanted to be the Joker, but they wanted to see the Joker have a positive outcome because of the way that they felt. You see what I'm saying? How's this hard to understand? Well, I think it's hard to understand because, it's like a very, like, I mean, if you don't understand it, like the way that this guy feels, then yeah, I mean, think about, because it's a pretty extreme thing, right?
Character regression instead of development for me. Then there's the musical numbers that pepper the narrative. I can't believe I'm saying this because normally I
Yeah,
fucking
actually,
hate
I mean, to be fair, like, yeah, maybe Lady Gaga was a good example, right? I never really thought, like, yeah, musical, she's a singer, of course, right?
musicals, but I
Yeah.
actually kind of enjoyed the sheer spectacle and performances while I was watching them.
Gay!
And Lady Gaga clearly doesn't have any trouble belting out her numbers. But the more I think about it, the more I see them as shiny objects trying to distract from what's actually a pretty stodgy, bloated, and uninspiring drama. The courtroom scenes are basically just a dry recap of the first film, telling us things that we mostly already know,
Jesus.
and destroying that awesome sense of ambiguity and unreality that made it such a fascinating story to pick apart. Now we know exactly what did and didn't happen.
I think also another reason why people like the story is because the story didn't tell, like, it didn't patronize or moralize to the audience. And I think that a lot of people that are like watching TV shows or watching film or like, you know, doing anything like that, I think that a lot of us, there's like a degree of escapism that goes away when you have like some evil villain and it's like, okay, well, the evil villain, you know, like still doesn't like racism or something like that, right? And there's like some form of like kind of like modernization to evil that makes it unrelatable, and it makes it feel like it's it's like it's fictitious, right? It's like fake. It was a story about propaganda. Exactly. Yeah, it's unpredictable. And I think also the reason why people like the first one is that the first one respected the audience enough to tell them a crazy story and like not basically give them like, this is how you should think about the story. You know, it was like it respected the audience's intelligence. I think that's like one way to say it. Sensitive evil. Yeah.
Happen, and shit, man, it feels like such a waste. And most disappointingly of all, I actually find myself kind of
open
bored
to
and checked
interpretation.
out
Exactly.
at times, something that absolutely never happened with the original movie.
Yeah.
As I said before, the question hanging over Joker 2 was...
So somebody says you shouldn't try to humanize an immoral character. The problem is that people that are immoral are still humans. And so when you tell a story and you don't do that, you're telling a story about a character that is fundamentally not human. You understand kind of how that problem, and so because you're telling a story in a way that's inauthentic, the level of escapism that a person can have with watching a show that they know isn't going to take certain risks, it's not going to do certain things, that escapism can never really fully be realized because they know that there's so many guardrails to the story, and it will never explore things in a way that they feel is authentic.
Is this a story that really needed to be told, or is it just a bunch of talented people doing their best to elevate a studio-mandated sequel into something that it isn't? Well, now that I've seen it, I'm afraid I know the answer, and it's not a good one. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.
It's very hard for me to say whether it was done on purpose. I feel like that's kind of a, I think that's kind of a conspiracy theory. The answer? Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of people think that they made this movie in order to, like, kind of show that the people that liked the first movie were, like, stupid losers. I feel like that's a bit of a conspiracy. And I think, as with everything, like, people try to, like, hijack and, like, co-opt art in order to make it, like, reinforce their worldview. Like, to own the chuds. Yeah, that's what I've heard many, many times. They hate that so many Batman fans flock to it. Yeah, exactly. People liked it a lot. And it makes sense why they liked it, right? I mean, you either die here or live long enough to see yourself become a musical. There you go. First one was good. Yeah, there you go. Well, that's what happened with The Hangover. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, also The Hangover, the first one was good. The director just said directly that he'll never work with DC again, and he hated the franchise. Well, I feel like if he really hated I don't know. Like, I mean, who knows why he said that? It's as obvious as it can be. They knew who the original was popular with. They know that Lady Gaga and it being a borderline musical would be despised by that audience. Maybe, I don't know. It's conjecture, but there are 3 moments in a movie that emasculate the Joker so that I can understand why people got mad. Well, that's the thing, is that, like, the Joker, like, at the end of the movie, he came out ahead, right? He killed people that made him mad, and everybody liked him. That's the thing. Is like, yeah, he won. This movie was made to one of the ones pushing specific ideologies and stories didn't belong in. Yeah, exactly. The Joker always had musical scenes in every single Batman movie, pretty much as well. I don't know. The first movie wasn't like that. And, you know, you build an audience of people around like one version of the Joker, and then you say, oh, well, the other ones were like this. Yeah, but they weren't watching the other ones. They were watching this one. So why take that and put it into this? So, yeah, it doesn't even make sense, even if that's true, right? Even if it's true, it doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is I didn't watch the second one. I heard the second one was awful. Everybody has told me the second one was awful. And that's why, like, I mean, because now at this point, I don't think I'm going to watch it. Like, people told me, like, there's many cases where, like, somebody said Sword Art Online after season 1 was bad. I never watched it. I just took their word for it. And I was like, you know what? I believe you. The film agenda propagation in every movie nowadays is so shit. But how is making this movie a good business decision? Like, who's responsible for making this investment? I think that a lot of movies, like, what happens is that movies, like, are decided, oh yeah, we're going to make another movie like this because this movie made a lot of money. So if we made 300% return and we spend twice as much money, that means we're going to make twice as much money, right? And so you have like really bad logic and like people that are making decisions for movies that don't really understand why movies are popular or what the purpose of like what people get out of those movies. Passion is there? Yeah, exactly. Like they see that and then they just try to co-opt it without understanding or respecting what it is. And I think also they just straight up wanted to take an established IP and build off of it. It's literally that simple, right?